On the island of Sicily there is a city colonized by the Greeks known as Syracuse, which flourished under the management of the tyrannical king Dionysius II, but despite being a rich and powerful man, the king was always worried, and so his face of severity was permanent in his court. There was a man named Damocles who was a friend of the king. He said he didn't understand why the king was always in a bad mood when he should be the happiest man on earth. The king was getting impatient with Damocles, who constantly repeated how wonderful was the life of a king who had everything at his disposal: women, luxuries, nothing was out of his reach, he said. It was then that the king, tired of such a litany of his friend, decided that they would change places for a day, to let Damocles feel the burden of wearing the crown. And Damocles was excited, as he thought this would surely be the happiest day of his life. He would reign all day over Syracuse while the king would take a day off. But there was a prank. Damocles, therefore, should remain one day seated on the throne, and on it would be placed a sword hanging from a single horsehair thread. A great table with a splendid banquet was placed in front of the interim king. There were delicacies present, very fine delicacies, but not he had a lot of appetite because he was worried about the sword on his head. Beautiful and exotic dancers danced in front of him, but he only kept his attention focused on the sword. That's when the wind blew, and at that moment Damocles wanted to get up from the throne because he was sure the sword would fall, but he was restrained by his royal advisors. Even surrounded by all the pleasures and luxury, the interim king had eyes for only one thing, and that was the sword that was over his head. With the dawn of a new day, King Dionysus returned to retaking his throne. Damocles threw himself at the king's feet and bent his knees and said that he had never missed his friend so much. The king asked how his day as king had been. Damocles replied that it was one of the worst experiences of his life. That terrible sword on his head was driving him crazy. The king explained to his friend that whenever a king is crowned, an invisible sword is placed on his head, and it can fall at any moment, for power brings with it countless enemies. Rival kingdoms may desire their lands, wealth may attract pirates and thieves, and even those closest to them, such as friends and relatives, may conspire to take their place. Damocles understood how heavy the crown is and never most desired to sit, not even for a day, on the throne upon which the sword leans, for at any moment it may fall.